Some sad news to bring you in the last couple of minutes or so. This is a breaking story at the time of recording. We don't have all of the details right now, but what we do know, it's being reported by PW Insider that WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler has been hospitalized in Florida after suffering a serious medical episode. Now, as I mentioned, this was broken by PW Insider, and it has now started to spread on social media with the likes of Dave Meltzer and others confirming this to be accurate. As I mentioned, it was first reported by Mike Johnson of PW Insider, who writes that PW Insider was sad to report that WWE Hall of Famer and one of the all-time greatest professional wrestlers of all time, Jerry the King Lawler, suffered what they're calling a medical episode while staying at his condo in Florida yesterday afternoon, that being Monday. Now, the story that has made the rounds is that Lawler had been out for lunch with friends, and sometime after that lunch, he took ill and he was rushed to hospital. Now, Mike Johnson of PW Insider is reporting that they had learned of the issue last night, but out of respect to Lawler and his family, they chose not to report. But over the course of the day today, word has started to spread after the likes of Ricky Morton and others publicly wish Lawler well. Now, since neither at the time of recording, Lawler's family nor WWE have made an official statement, they were choosing not to report the nature of this issue. So again, at the time, we don't know the full details on this. If we do get any updates on you of the nature of what is going on right now, again, this is very much a situation whereby where we don't have the full details at the moment. This is a breaking news story. What is apparent here is Mike Johnson and PW Insider are aware of the nature of the issue, but out of respect to Lawler and his family, they're not reporting the nature of it just yet. Now, Jerry Lawler, of course, is 73 years of age. He had just appeared on the WWE Royal Rumble 2023 kickoff panel just a couple of weeks ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago. He did a signing in Florida over the weekend, just a few days ago. He is currently hospitalized, and of course, we wish him the very best. And hope, prayers, fingers crossed. We know Jerry Lawler's had his health issues in the past. He's kicked out every single time, and I truly, firmly believe he can do it again. And we wish him the best. We send our thoughts, prayers to the family of Jerry Lawler, to the friends of Jerry Lawler, to the fans of Jerry Lawler, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, one of the greatest personalities of all time, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, whether it's doing the Andy Kaufman on David Letterman stuff, whether it's setting the Memphis territory on fire, whether it's being part of the greatest commentary team, in my opinion, ever in professional wrestling history, that being Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler. He really has, done it all, absolutely done it all. And as I mentioned, Jerry Lawler has diced with the other side a couple of times in his life. He last wrestled for WWE in September of 2012, over a decade ago, where he worked a tag team match on Monday Night Raw. He then returned to his commentary position, only to suffer a massive heart attack. And in one of the luckiest twists of fate ever to ever happen on live television, given the seriousness of the situation, Dr. Michael Sampson, at the time with the company, was sitting right next to Jerry Lawler, and began to immediately provide medical attention. He was then rushed to a Montreal hospital. This took place in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and with an amazing top-of-the-line cardiac unit that was literally across the street from the arena, he eventually made a full recovery. He would never be cleared by WWE to ever wrestle again, but he was a commentator, and he did the occasional bump for WWE as well. What was amazing, given this situation with Jerry Lawler, is that despite WWE never deciding to clear him again, he was cleared by his own personal doctor, and he returned to the ring on the independent scene. He worked a smart style based around his mic work. He had been wrestling, as I mentioned, that was over a decade ago, and he's been wrestling for the past decade or so on the indies. And it was incredible to see. As I mentioned, he was still active in terms of wrestling. Despite being 73, he just worked a match just weeks ago against former Ring of Honor star Beer City Bruiser in North Carolina. He'd also been in the ring with the likes of George South, Doug Gilbert over the last year, bringing a little taste of that Memphis flavor to everything from smaller independent shows to Memphis wrestling nostalgia events. And he still, whilst he wasn't the Jerry Lawler of the 1980s or anything like that, he was still Jerry Lawler, and he was still wrestling. And he was a regular, as I mentioned, on the independent wrestling circuit, did a lot of conventions, a lot of signings as well. And again, we still don't know. We still don't know the full nature of this medical issue. It's been described as serious. But here's hoping once again he can kick out and he can do what he loves to do, clearly, and that's wrestle, and that's entertain fans. As I mentioned, it's not just the huge heart attack he had in 2012. He also actually fell ill in March of 2018. It was a miraculous recovery, a bit like the first time an incident had happened with him when it came to his health. He actually fell ill in March of 2018 when he was at home with his fiancée Lauren, and he actually had a stroke. He was unable to speak for almost 3 days. He woke up, his face had drooped on one side, and doctors found a hemorrhage on his brain. And despite being placed in intensive care, somehow he made a full recovery, and he left doctors absolutely stunned, and he was discharged just a week later. And on top of that, 2 weeks later, he was commentating at WrestleMania 34 during the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale. And 2 weeks prior, he'd suffered a stroke and he'd recovered, which leads me to think that it is possible. And again, whilst we don't know all of the details, it is possible that he can kick out and he can recover from this. And that's why I think it's so important to send our thoughts and our prayers and keep Jerry Lawler in our thoughts, certainly. And you know, it's incredibly sad. It's incredibly worrying. As I mentioned, not all of the details are fully out right now, and we just have to hope. We just have to hope that again we can see Jerry Lawler kick out of this one. As I mentioned, Ricky Morton, WWE Hall of Famer, tweeted today saying, quote, "Please direct good vibes, thoughts and prayers to Jerry at this time. Genuinely appreciate it and hope to hear good news in the very near future." Dave Meltzer, this was the first of me actually hearing any of this news. It was actually from Dave Meltzer saying, quote, "Hope for the best for Jerry Lawler." And I was taken a bit off guard by that because I thought, what is he talking about? What's going on there? Ric Flair, in the last couple of minutes as I record this video, has posted a picture of himself with Jerry Lawler saying, "We are all praying for you, Jerry Lawler." As I mentioned, it's an undisclosed medical issue that he suffered yesterday afternoon. We still don't know the full details of this as well. So again, we're still sort of finding this out as we go, as we record this right now. And of course, if we do get any more details, as I mentioned, we'll let you know here on the channel. But it's incredibly sad, and you know, it's concerning, absolutely really concerning. And my hope is certainly that he can get through it, because you know, Jerry Lawler, to me, he's one of the best ever in pro wrestling. And I know people don't, for whatever reason, put him in that conversation because people of maybe my generation just remember him as the commentator. Everything Jerry Lawler has done in his career, he's excelled at. Whether it is being the biggest draw in Memphis wrestling history, whether it is being one of the greatest color commentators of all time, whether it's being one of the greatest heels of all time, but also at the same time being one of the greatest baby faces of all time. In Memphis, he's the ultimate baby face. In the WWE as a heel commentator, he was the ultimate heel. Some of his heel promos that he did with the likes of, you know, Bret Hart, and talking about Stu and his wife, and talking about, you know, gold dust and all that kind of stuff. He's a real wrestling genius. And I know people might reflect on today's or the last sort of 5-10 years of Jerry Lawler and say, oh, what, the guy that does corny jokes on commentary. But you go back and watch any Attitude Era episode of Monday Night Raw, Jerry the King Lawler on commentary, and it's something else. His reactions were just a different level. And as I said, as a worker as well in Memphis, you wouldn't have found a bigger babyface than Jerry the King Lawler. He was just that big, that popular. He is, you know, when you talk about Memphis and you talk about, you know, icons from that state, obviously people talk about, you know, Elvis Presley and Graceland or whatever. In Memphis, Tennessee, everyone knows Jerry the King Lawler. Everyone. And in pro wrestling, everyone should also know Jerry the King Lawler. And in the same way, everyone should have him in their thoughts and prayers. And hopefully in the next update we have on this, we'll have good news. So Jerry Lawler, keep fighting. You can get through this. You've got through this once before. You can get through this again. Keep fighting, King. You've got this.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.